Hello, welcome to my Engage360 assignment. For this assignment, I'm going to focus my lesson about addition. One thing when doing addition is just having the kids' attention and maintaining engagement. That's what's most important for any lesson, is engagement and participation. So it's important to find any strategy that will engage each and every student. This is my first slide. Scaffolding supports to increase engagement in addition lesson. So my setting is it's a first grade ASD self-contained classroom. My district specifically for the program that I'm in uses a unique learning system, and the focus of the lesson was addition to 20. I have 3 learning objectives for this lesson. Students will solve addition problems within 20 using concrete manipulatives. Students will represent addition problems using visual models, equation, number lines, and drawings. Students will communicate their solution using verbal language, visuals, or AAC device. So here I have the student profiles. Strong preference for visual information, difficulty with abstract reasoning, limited expressive language for some students, need for predictable routines and structure, sensory-seeking behaviors, difficulty sustaining attention, task avoidance when overwhelmed. So I have a total of 7 students with different variety of needs. What's most important is just grabbing their attention and keeping them focused and engaged throughout the lesson, whether if it's a whole group, small groups. Usually what I do is when I present the lesson, we do it in whole groups. And then once we get into individual assignments, we break up into small groups depending on the needs of each student. Here I have concrete and structure support. So whenever I do addition, I love using manipulatives such as cubes or counters. Also visual equation mats, number lines, and also I like to have visual timers and include movement breaks throughout the lesson. Visual timers I like to use so the students can know how long we're gonna work on an assignment for. I might add some time to it if I feel like we need extra time. And then movement breaks, I usually like to do movement breaks like every 5 to 10 minutes. Because I don't like having students working on an activity for a long duration of time without any breaks. I don't want them to become overwhelmed or tired, so I usually include brain breaks throughout the lesson. And these supports address common challenges in ASD such as abstraction difficulty, executive functioning needs, and regulation. I feel like with these supports, such as manipulatives, visual equation mats, and number lines, it helps students get the concept of addition much more. Um, Students need to physically be able to manipulate items, whether it's bears or counters, to represent addition. Because I feel like if you just show them numbers, for example, 2 plus 2, it's hard for them to visualize and have a visual representation of the concept of addition. Because if you use 2 counters, say for example 2 counters, you add two more, that makes 4. It's much easier for them to visualize it and get the concept of addition. And also with number lines as well, I feel like that's a good representation of addition. Say for example, another example, 2 plus 2. Yeah, you start with the 2 on the number line. You say add 2 more. You jump 3, 4, and you have 4 for 2 more. It's might be a little bit more challenging to them, but it's definitely a lot easier than just showing them on the paper 2 plus 2. So here I have digital supports, interactive ULS slides, drag and drop activities, immediate visual feedback. Technology increases motivation for students who show high interest in predictable, visually structured digital environments. One of the things that I like to do during lessons are using the website for the unique learning system, because there they have interactive slides that students can engage with. I'm going to show an example right now. Here I have one example from our curriculum, the unique learning system. So usually what I do this is, when I do this, I assign it to their computer. So for example, I have this question here. Chantel counts 6 pairs of ski goggles. Counts 4 pairs of ski goggles. So here they count each goggle. So they have 6 here, and then 4 down here. So they see 6 plus 4, and they have to click on here, and then click on the numbers. Usually what I tell them, sometimes they might get confused, so I tell them they have to count all the goggles together. So you have 2 people, Chantal has 6, Kyle has 4, and they count them all together. So I usually have to prompt them to do this. So for example, we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then here they have to click on 10. They actually have to drag 10 here, so grab 10 and drag it. And they love hearing that noise. I feel like that's something that's motivational to them once they hear that noise, and then they move on to the next question. Many students with autism respond positively to technology. So I just think it's important to involve it as much as possible. Again, not always, because I don't think it's always a good idea to do it every lesson. I enjoy doing it about 2-3 times a week, depending on what lesson I'm teaching throughout the week. But overall, technology just increases motivation, and I also just think it makes a lot easier for students. Mostly because it draws their attention and interest. They also have an easier time maintaining focus while working on these assignments through computers. Here I have supporting mathematical thinking and participation. So some strategies I include during these lessons are structured math language. For example, I like to use sentence frames for students that are able to do so, using multiple ways to represent addition, and choice within structure. Supporting mathematical thinking requires intentional structures that allow students to access and express their understanding in predictable and meaningful ways. These supports ensure that all students are working towards the same mathematical goal and honoring differences in processing, communication, and regulation. So when it comes to using multiple ways to represent addition and choice within structure, I always enjoy giving the students the option of how they want to work, and how they want to represent their addition problems. Here I have my reflection. Visual and concrete supports resulted in highest engagement. Predictable structure reduced avoidance behaviors. Matching supports to ASD characteristics increased independence. Gradual fading of supports promoted generalization. Intentional scaffolding in an ASD classroom ensures that rigor remains high while barriers to access are reduced. When it comes to visual and concrete supports, for my students, it always catches their interest. With visuals, it catches their attention a lot more. And again, just to be showing them a piece of paper of math problems. When you show them on the board, oh, I have 5 dogs here. Let's say we added 2 more dogs. How many do we have? But they actually have to visually see it. So that's something I try to do a lot of whenever I'm up on the board. Having a predictable structure reduces a lot of avoidance behaviors. Once students know what to expect, it's easier for them to accept it. With my students, it has to be a lot about routines. Students have to know what to expect. Once they know what to expect, they know what they have to do, and it becomes a easier transition. Matching supports to ASD characteristics increase independence. Whether it's abstract thinking, challenges with attention, or visual structure, it was important to provide as much support in order to promote that independence. It just all depends on the needs of each student. Every student is different, and it's important as a teacher to try to promote that independence with their needs, and it all depends on the type of support that is offered to them. And during this process, it's important to gradually fade those supports, and as they fade, that increases independence. And overall, that's the goal with each lesson, is try to fade those supports for those students. Um, and each student needs their different levels of support. There's students that need that one-to-one support, while other students could work independently with other groups of students. I also want to include this quote from our Design and Deliver book. Incorporating student choice in areas ranging from classroom management, e.g., they choose where to sit during independent or group work. They can opt for synchronous or asynchronous support. They choose the types of rewards they receive for positive behaviors. They have their choice of learning strategies or platforms. To academics, e.g., they choose which method they will use to solve math problems. They can complete sections of their work in whatever order they choose. They choose how they will gather information, to the type of tools they use to respond in an online environment. What I understood from this quote is that um, it's all about choices and offering choices. Whenever anybody, not just students or kids, whenever anybody's offered a choice, they feel more ownership. Once anybody feels more ownership, they feel more motivated to do what they want to do. For example, here when it comes to working on assignments, it becomes more motivating to finish it.